what this is about is truth. The commitment that is involved in these teachings and practices is a commitment to the truth. What is the truth? The truth is reality. The truth is what's actually happening. And so if the truth is that the sounds that occur are not a distraction in reality, if the truth is that the sounds that occur are not even separate from you, if the truth is that the sounds actually are you, and the awareness of the sounds and the sounds are the same thing, if that's the truth, and you can understand that, you can, whether that's the way it appears for you, the way it occurs for you or not, if you can understand that that's the truth, and if you can appreciate the implications of that truth in terms of what difference it would make as far as the experience of being a human being, the experience of having a life, the experience of relating to the circumstances that occur in a human life, then that appreciation and that understanding would motivate you to be more committed than ever to these teachings and practices, even if you've been around for a while and you've heard me talk about it, even with the understanding that that's not going to get you anywhere. You'd be more committed than ever to these teachings and practices, given the understanding you have and the implications you have of what is possible, even with the appreciation that no matter how motivated you are, and no matter how hard you try, and no matter how much you meditate, and no matter how much you learn, that it won't make any difference. Even with that being the case, because you see, to have that understanding of it really gets you on the playing field. To have that understanding really helps to point to the bottom line, which is that we start at the end in these teachings. This is the direct approach. And the bottom line is you are already the truth. It is already the case. So you're trying to, as Paul Hederman would say, so what you're doing is trying to get out of something you're not in. You're trying to be something you already are. And you can't help it. You have no choice about it. Because all you had when you started with this is your conditioning. And your conditioning is that you're a separate self, you're a person, that you're a thinker of your thoughts, and that's been so thoroughly put into you that it just keeps being that way for you. It just keeps happening. And then it gets convoluted because it keeps happening that way, and it is insidious in the sense that not only does it keep happening that way, but you will identify yourself as the person trying not to be the person. You will identify yourself as the person not to be the person. That's what you just shared, by the way. Speaking as the person trying not to be the person. So, as Huang Po said, a Zen master, if you get these gems, these koans, these contemplations, it can really open something up. And he said, you can't seek the Buddha with the Buddha. You can't seek the Buddha with the Buddha. And in the Buddhistic teachings, they say that you are the Buddha. Everybody's the Buddha. They say that you are enlightened. Everybody's enlightened. They say that you are already what you are. And they call that the Buddha, but the word Buddha means awakened one. You are the awakened one. So you can't seek the awakened one with the awakened one. Because if you attempt to seek the awakened one with the awakened one, you have to start from a lie. You have to start from a lie. In other words, you don't know you're seeking the awakening one from the awakening one. You don't know you're Buddha seeking Buddha. You have to start from a lie. You have to start that you're not the awakening one seeking the awakening one. That's why you can't seek the Buddha with the Buddha. Because if you knew you were Buddha, you wouldn't attempt to seek yourself. So you can't seek the Buddha with the Buddha. You can only seek the Buddha with not the Buddha. And so part of this process is letting go of the idea that there's somewhere to go, letting go of the idea that there's something to get. You know, when I work with people, I have people that I work with one-on-one in consultations, and I often say to them, I think it's evident that the interaction we're having here, and this is true here too, I think it's evident, or it seems evident, that the interaction we're having here is based on the idea that there's something that you're going to get out of it. Isn't it? Yeah, it's based on the idea that there's something you're going to get out of it. It's based on the idea that there's something you're going to accomplish. It's based on the idea that there's something you're going to realize. There's something you're going to learn. It's based on that idea. That's the motivation to be here. That's the motivation to practice meditation. And what I like to say, in order to make sure that I'm not on the hook, is that that's just not true. Even though I said what I just said, there's nothing to get, right? That this whole thing is just a maneuver that that it's a maneuver. If the teacher's a good teacher, it's a maneuver the teacher's using to frustrate you. It's a maneuver, right? And so I'll say to you there's nothing to get, and that if you're here because you think you're going to accomplish something, you're kidding yourself, right? If you're here if you're here to seek the Buddha, and you don't know you're the Buddha, the joke's on you. Right? So I don't feel any pressure, you see, because you can't hold me accountable for anything. And then having said that, I'll play the game with you. Then I'll start talking about things that sound like they're very interesting insights. And then your mind will gravitate towards that right away, because your mind's hungry, you know what I mean? Your mind has the idea that what it's all about is getting information, right? Because that's the game we learned how to play, right? The more information you have, the more powerful you are. The more information you have, the more answers you have. And the more answers you have, you know, the less problems you have. And part of what this is all about is the discovery that that's only true in a world in which people consider themselves to be limited and separate from one another and separate from the world. That's only true in that condition, and that condition doesn't work. That's what's evident. That's why one of the things that Paul Hederman says that I really like is the only value there is, and everything that there is to learn about the way things are in the world, the only value there is the recognition that it's a failure. If you recognize it's a failure, you got one thing out of it that's really worth something. Everything else you get out of it will just lead you on to continue to keep trying more, different, and better, believing in the future, looking forward to the future, thinking about what you need to change, doing things harder. And you can't help it. You can't help it because we're all trained dogs when it comes to that. We're all trained dogs. So you can't help it. The only difference between being a trained dog and what we're talking about here is the possibility for you to experience what you are beyond being a trained dog is actually possible. And for a dog, that's not possible. They're just going to be a trained dog. And when you see things as they are, the possibility for freedom exists from suffering. Because when you see things as they are, you stop expecting them to be different. That's so simple. When you see things as they are, you stop expecting them to be different, including you, including your own pea-shooter mind. You'd stop expecting it to be different. There are no surprises anymore. Because when you see things as they are, when you see life as it is, right? When you see life as it is, you see that life is completely unpredictable. So you stop expecting it to be predictable. That's what's upsetting all the time. Your plans get disrupted. Your expectations get disrupted. Your intentions get disrupted. And yet you keep playing the same losing game. It's interesting. I find it interesting that as things happen in my life, because I've been at this for a while, as things happen in my life, and I notice that this should be very upsetting. I notice that it should be very upsetting, but I'm not upset. And it's clear to me that the reason I'm not upset is because it's not that I didn't expect this to happen, no matter what it is. No matter what it is, because anything can happen. The sun could burn out. See, once you're clear that anything can happen, right, it opens up reality. But it's not just a negative reality, because anything can happen, and that doesn't just mean that the sun can burn out. It also means that you could wake up. So the openness of it all allows everything to be as it is. And when you allow everything to be as it is, and part of what you're allowing to be as it is that who you thought you were isn't actually real. So when you allow everything to be as it is, you're allowing that to be as it is. And then everything starts to move on its own without the interference of your good ideas, without the interference of your great expectations, without the interference of the way you intended it to be. It's actually very liberating. Very liberating. And the interesting thing about it is that it's not that, it doesn't mean that you're living in a state of constant bliss. It doesn't mean that you don't experience physical pain. It doesn't even mean that you don't experience negative mental states or negative emotions. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that there's nobody separate from any of that to have that experience. So those things still happen. All of it still happens. Nothing changes. It's very important to be clear that what we're talking about here in terms of what there is that's possible, when that happens, nothing will have changed. Your mind chokes on that one, right? If you were to wake, if I could have snapped my finger right now and you would all be completely awake, you would be Buddhas, you would be awakened beings, nothing would be different than it is right now. That's right. That's why nothing would be different. That's why nothing would be different. Now, when I say nothing would be different, even though you already are Buddhas, you would still think that you're not. That has to be true if nothing would be different, doesn't it? But that the thought occurred that you're not would no longer have any relevance. That's the difference. When you see things as they are, you're no longer suckered into believing that the way they seem and the way things appear is the way they actually are. It's just an appearance.
Are you still a hungry ghost then?
What's that?
Are you still a hungry ghost then at that point?
Well, yes and no, because again, if I say that nothing changes, what I'm saying is that it's possible to experience the same thoughts that the hungry ghost would have, right, or the same sense of lack that a hungry ghost would have, right? But you're not being a hungry ghost. You see the difference? You're just not being that anymore. Before you knew the difference, you were being a hungry ghost, and you were suffering from the hunger that could never be satisfied. But after the realization, you may still have the exact same experience of being a hungry ghost, but it's now irrelevant to you. Okay, that's enough.